For a closer look at the consequences the crew could face, I spoke to John Kimball, partner at Blank Rome LLP. He is a leading lawyer in shipping litigation. Here's what he said about the legal responsibilities of the crew.
The new charges are not surprising. The South Korean government is taking a very aggressive approach to the investigation and certainly the criminal investigation. So it wasn't surprising to me that they reached out to basically charge additional crew members. It's a little difficult to know how it's going to play out because the exact timeline of who made what decision remains unclear to me.
Well, how much of this can be attributed to technical error versus human error? And is that something that will come into consideration during the judicial process?
Very much so. The human error is probably, from all the press accounts, probably the dominant factor that we're hearing about. The technical error, I'm not so sure what it will be. It's conceivable, for example, that there was improper stowage of the vehicles that were on board the vessel, which could have contributed to the listing that was experienced. But that also would be a form of human error. So I think human error is going to be the dominant factor here.
South Korea's president is basically coming out and saying that the captain's actions are akin to murder. So how much responsibility falls on the captain, and should the rest of the crew members face the same consequences? Does it ultimately stop with the captain?
It does ultimately stop with the captain. He was the person in command of the vessel, and he's the person who has ultimate responsibility for all of the decisions. So it's not surprising that the government will be focusing on him. On the other hand, there were other crew members involved and who may have made negligent decisions. I think it remains to be seen whether there was any negligence on their part or whether they just got overwhelmed by the situation.
So what's next here? Could we possibly see some harsh punishments? Could we see even murder charges?
Well, I don't know about murder charges. I mean, the timeline on this case is just getting established, and the who did what, I think, is in the process of being determined. There's a long way to go in the investigation. It seems like a number of people were involved. And it seems like from what I can read, the events overwhelmed the vessel very quickly. They had very little time to adjust, in a sense, to the conditions they found themselves in, which were absolutely extraordinary. I mean, the vessel took a very extraordinary list quite quickly, and therefore the crew was in a very difficult situation. And it seems that they reacted promptly. They did make radio calls for help quite early, and there was a long time between the initial radio call and the time when the shore station first suggested that they begin evacuating. So there is a lot, I think, still to be determined with respect to the timeline.
What about the families and the relatives in this case? Do they have any recourse? Could they possibly bring about their own charges or lawsuits?
I would expect that the families will be bringing lawsuits. I'm sure that the family members do have rights. That, of course, is a matter governed by Korean law, and I can't really speak to Korean law. But frankly, it would surprise me a great deal if claims were not made by the family members.